Hi all, this is Allmighty and welcome to this video. So in this video once again we have a game from the candidates of 2018 and this is round 3. So between these two guys, Kramnik has 1.5 points, so he won in the first round against Grischuk. In the second round he drew against Karjakin and Levon Aronian, who has 1 point. So draws in the first 2 rounds, and yeah, they are battling for the points so they can get closer to the challenge of Magnus Carlsen. And people probably would like to see Levon Aronian actually win this tournament, because yeah, he played in a lot of these candidates tournaments and in the end he never really manages to end up being first. But a lot of people say this will be his year. But I guess that the former world champion Vladimir Kramnik also has something to say about it. So as I've said, the former world champion, but a guy that had an unfortunate event happen to him, being checkmated in that game between him and the computer in one move. Then a lot of people started writing about it, and it kind of ended up being that he got famous for that. But nevertheless, Kramnik is a really good player. I can vouch for that. I watched a lot of his games, and I'm really glad that this could be actually the first game that I'm covering from him on this channel. So without further ado, let's just go into it. We have e4, e5, knight to f3, knight to c6, and bishop to b5. So Ruy Lopez once again establishes itself as being the most frequent opening on this tournament. And now we have knight to f6 and d3, going for that Berlin defense. So Aronian isn't scared because, as we all know, Kramnik is a well-known player in the Berlin defense, and he goes for this variation of playing d3 move. Actually, in round 2, where Kramnik was white against Karjakin, they also played the Berlin defense, and yeah, Kramnik decided to go castle, and after knight to e4 we had that variation where the queens were exchanged, and in the end, a lot of positional play. It ended up being a draw, and I think even more than 50 moves. But Aronian doesn't want to exchange queens, and he plays d3 here. We have bishop c5, bishop takes c6, d6, and of course now knight to e5 is a mistake because of queen to d4. You're threatening to capture the knight and also give a checkmate on f2. So of course Aronian didn't play this, he went castle, a totally normal move. We have queen to e7 defending the pawn, and h3 not allowing bishop to come to g4. And now a move that surprised a lot of people, rook to g8. So rook to g8 was played, yeah, it is considered to be a long-awaited preparation by Kramnik, but he never really expected, yeah, Aronian to play the Berlin defense against him. So I guess now it's the right time to try out something like this. And now it's time for Aronian to actually find what is the best continuation. He plays king to h1 and now knight to h5. So Kramnik is going all out on the king side because, as you can see, nothing stops him to actually go and castle queen side. He will be very safe there, and white on the other hand went really quickly into the castle, which is a fairly common thing in this opening, and now he wants to exploit it with pushing g5, even g4, and opening up the position. Now we have c3. Probably not the best move. I will show you later. A better move could have been knight to c3, but c3 was played in order to open up the center a little bit. We have g5 now, and yeah, as I've said, Kramnik is going all in, and now we have knight takes on e5. So not sacrificing the knight, because if you take the knight, then queen to h5 is coming, and yeah, Aronian then simplifies the position a little bit. d4 is a threat, and also capturing on h7, so white is even better in this position. To actually prevent capturing of the knight, Kramnik plays g4, which is the strongest move. And now we have d4 closing up the position in the center, bishop d6. And now g3. So as you can see, if knight was on c3 at this point, so everything pretty much here is forced, then he could have easily come to e2 in order to help even more into the defense on this side of the... Yeah, but in the end, yeah, it kind of doesn't look now good with this c3 move, because knight from d2 doesn't really have a good square to jump to, because the rook has to move. The f3 square is guarded by this pawn, so it is a question. We have bishop takes on e5, d takes on e5, and queen takes on e5. So a little bit of exchanges in the center, and queen to d4. Aronian would really like to exchange queens in order to simplify the position. But Kramnik, as he stated with his rook to g8 move, he wants to go for a win. He doesn't want to exchange queens. He plays queen to e7. We have h4 in order to kind of, block it a little bit on the king side. And now we have c5, attacking the queen, and now this queen has to find the best square to go to. Aronian plays queen to c4, but also queen to d3 was a possible move. And after queen to c4, bishop to e6 is developed with tempo, queen to b5 check, and c6 the only reasonable move. All other moves would lead, for example, if you put the queen, you lose on c5, and if you put the bishop, you lose on b7, and you are guarding on the e4 square. The thing is, with this move c5, sorry, let me just show you. If you go somewhere like this, then the threat is probably bishop to d7, bishop to c6. But since Aronian played queen to c4, bishop to e6 comes with the tempo, queen to b5, c6, and black has developed all of his pieces. Now he still has to develop this rook. On the other hand, Aronian has a problem on his queen side. And now, once again, Aronian makes a mistake. He plays queen to a4. So he moved the queen quite far away from the defense of his king, and the attack is still going on. Probably a better move could have been queen to d3, even though rook to d8 comes with the tempo, because you can play queen to e3. Now you are closer, you're defending this pawn, but you still have to think about how will you develop your pieces. Instead of that, queen to a4 was played, and now f5 goes right away. You're attacking this pawn. It is not good to take because, of course, bishop to d5 check. And finally, Aronian tries to develop with tempo, but now it's too late because rook takes on g5. H takes on g5 and f4. As you can see, the position will open up really quickly. You cannot take on f4 because knight will take on f4, queen will take on g5. The h file is open, and only problems will come for white in this position. So Aronian decided to play queen to d1 to bring the queen closer to the defense, but now we have rook to d8 with tempo and queen to c1. So trying to attack this pawn in order to capture it, but now f takes on g3, opening up the position in front of the king. We have a knight to a3, a final probably try to develop this knight and maybe open up and also include this rook into the game, but unfortunately for Aronian, black is too fast in the situation. We have rook to d3, bringing the rook into the game. The threat is to capture on f2 and then maybe have rook to h3 or rook to g3 threats. We have rook to d1, try to exchange rooks, but in this position, once again, Kramnik proves why he was a former world champion and why he actually is supposed to be considered a big threat to the first place in this tournament. He plays an absolute screamer, bishop to d5 here. So an absolute best move. I mean, at this point we are only 24 moves in, and okay, he has time on the clock to actually calculate something like this, but as you can see, he has to see two things: what happens if rook takes on d3, and what happens when pawns takes on d5. So when pawns takes on d5, we have queen to e4 check, and now it is possible to play f3 or king to g1. If king to g1, you can even capture on f2. You have to capture on f2. King takes on f2, and now also moves such as rook to g3. Rook to e1 doesn't help because rook to g2 check, king to f1, and knight to g3 is checkmate. So this is just one way how you can checkmate, but pretty much all the other moves that white can play also lead to the same conclusion. What happens if instead of taking the bishop you take the rook? Then queen will take on e4. f3 is a possibility, then g takes on f3, and now you can either play rook to e3, but that doesn't help because f2 is played with check, rook takes and bishop takes is checkmate. And if you don't pin the queen with the rook, you for example play queen to e1, then you have once again f2 check, but now there is this rook to f3 defense. You cannot take the rook with the queen because she has pinned, but nevertheless, queen takes on e1 with check, rook takes on e1, pawn takes, and you get the queen out. And in this situation, yeah, you can play king to g2 and knight to f4 is checkmate. So in the end, all of the moves lead to checkmate. Instead of all of that, so he didn't take on d3. Here Aronian played f3, and we have g takes on f3. Now he took on d5, and queen played on e2. Again, the strongest move. Aronian tried to pin the queen in order to, yeah, maybe win it, but he is too slow because after g2 he actually resigned the game. So a very beautiful miniature in this Candidates of 2018. So you don't expect to see a game end up that fast in a tournament such as this, and also in this style. So really props to Kramnik, yeah, showing his strength in this game. So in this situation, what will happen? Let me just show you. So king g1 and king h2 are possibilities. If you go to g1, f2 is a threat. If you capture the pawn, then you have this double check and checkmate. If you actually go to h2, then you also have queen first goes out here, rook takes, and now you take out the queen like this. So you don't take the rook, you take the queen like this, rook has to cover, and this is checkmate. Other thing that could have happened, if you go instead of g1 to h2, then once again you pull out the queen. You can afford sacrificing at least one pawn. If the king takes, then once again you have f2, king to g2, and now you can take the rook, put it out, and this is a checkmate. And if you go on h2, once again you have f1 queen, rook and so sorry, no, not f1 queen, but rather once again you'd capture the rook, and this is checkmate. So sorry for that. A lot of possibilities to checkmate in the end, but yeah, once again, as I've said, great props to Kramnik. And actually after this game, all other games ended up being drawn, and Kramnik is the sole leader after 3 rounds with 2.5 points. So his win against Grischuk, today's win against Aronian, and also people say that he probably could have won against Karjakin with white pieces, but somewhere along the way in the middle game he didn't manage to play the strongest move and continue in the end game with a better position. But nevertheless, yeah, a strong start from Kramnik, and now I guess people will change their minds who actually can maybe win the tournament. I'm still staying with my pick, Mamedyarov, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to the round 4. And yeah, that being said, I would like to thank you for watching this video, and I will see you next time.